You know, staying on top of all the latest tech news, especially in AI, it can feel like a full-time job, can't it?
Oh, it absolutely can. It seems like there's something new dropping every single day.
Right. But that's why we do what we do here, try to cut through the noise and make sense of it all.
Exactly. Give you the key insights without having to wade through mountains of articles and blog posts.
So today, we are diving into something pretty major, something that's definitely got the AI world buzzing. Meta AI's brand new Llama 4.
Yeah, this is big. And we've gone deep into the source material on this one, trying to get a full picture.
Oh yeah, we've got Reddit threads, technical deep dives from MarkTech Post, the official announcements from Meta AI, even some strategic analysis from Kahoot, and a really interesting piece from Turtles AI that looks at what we'll get to that.
Sounds like we've got all our bases covered.
I think so. And the mission, as always, is to figure out what's truly groundbreaking here, what it means for you, and what we can expect going forward.
All right, let's do it.
So, just to give folks a quick overview, Meta didn't just release one model, they actually released two, Llama 4 Scout and Llama 4 Maverick. And of course, there are hints of something even bigger on the horizon.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Well, when news this big breaks, where's the first place everyone goes?
Reddit, of course.
Exactly. And the Our Local Llama subreddit, they were losing their minds.
I bet. So what were people saying? Spill the tea.
Well, this one comment really caught my eye. User imdagotnocap posted 10 min context window with about a dozen question marks.
That kind of sums up the initial reaction. Pure shock.
Yeah, nobody was expecting that. It's a huge jump from anything we've seen before.
Right. But another user, Estebanza, brought up a good point. They said, yeah, 10 million tokens is amazing in theory, but real-world use might be closer to 1 million.
Okay, that makes sense. But even 1 million, that's still massive, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. It's like the AI suddenly has this incredibly long memory. It can keep track of so much more information, so conversations can be much deeper and more nuanced.
Yeah, that's a great point. No more frustrating moments where the AI seems to forget what you were just talking about 2 sentences ago.
Right. And imagine what this could do for things like analyzing really long documents or understanding complex code bases.
Okay, so speaking of that massive context window, let's zero in on Llama 4 Scout.
Okay, let's do it.
Meta AI and MarkTech Post are both calling it out for its superior text and visual intelligence.
Right. They're definitely emphasizing the multimodal aspect of these models. But yeah, that 10 million token context window, it's really the headline here.
Absolutely. I mean, 10 million tokens, that's enough to hold the entire text of Lord of the Rings, all 3 books, multiple times over.
Wow, that's a good way to put it in perspective. You could feed it an entire textbook, and it could theoretically understand the whole thing, all the connections, all the nuances.
Crazy, right? And, okay, I know this gets a little technical, but the brains behind Scout, it's 17B active parameters by 16 experts, 109B total parameters.
Yeah, that sounds impressive, but what does it mean for, someone who's not a computer scientist?
Well, the key thing here is that Meta says this entire beast can run on a single H100 GPU with 80 gigabytes of VRAM.
Okay, so that's important
because it means that this level of power is becoming more accessible. It's not just for the big tech giants anymore. More researchers, more developers can actually get their hands on this and start experimenting.
That's huge for driving innovation. When more people can play with these tools, that's when things get really interesting.
Absolutely. And both the Meta AI blog and MarkTech Post really emphasize that Scout isn't just about that big context window, it's about performance too. It's actually beating some pretty impressive models in benchmarks, things like Gemma 3, Gemini 2.0 Flashlight, and Mistral 3.1.
So it's not just big, it's also powerful and efficient. That's a pretty compelling combination.
It is. And MarkTech Post lays out some really interesting practical applications for this. They talk about long-form document processing, understanding complex code bases, even having really detailed and nuanced dialogue.
I can see how that would be useful. Imagine feeding an AI all the documentation for a huge software project.
Yeah.
And it can actually make sense of the whole thing.
Or even something simpler, like summarizing a ton of research papers for you so you don't have to spend weeks reading through them.
Yeah, or imagine what it could do for legal documents. Being able to really grasp all the details and the nuances of a really long and complex contract, that's a game changer.
So we've talked about Scout, but Meta also released another model, Llama 4 Maverick.
Right, Maverick. What's the story with this one?
Well, they're calling it our most powerful open source multimodal model. And they really emphasize that it offers industry-leading intelligence and fast responses at a low cost.
Okay, so it's powerful but also efficient. That sounds like a good balance.
It does, and the technical specs kind of back that up. 17B active parameters by 128 experts, 400B total parameters.
Okay, I'm noticing a pretty big jump in the number of experts compared to Scout.
You're right, that's a key difference. And the mixture of experts, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, can you break that down for me?
Sure, it's like having a team of specialized AI brains, right? So instead of one massive brain trying to handle everything, the system can dynamically activate only the experts that are most relevant for a particular task.
So it's kind of like if you ask a question about astrophysics, it doesn't activate the expert on ancient history, just the one that actually knows about stars and galaxies.
Exactly. It's a much smarter way to use resources, which makes the whole system much more efficient.
So that probably explains why it can deliver those fast responses they're talking about.
Makes sense, right? And both Meta AI and MarkTech Post talk about how this architecture, particularly the increased number of experts, really enhances what they call visual grounding.
Okay, visual grounding. What exactly does that mean?
Well, imagine you're showing the AI a picture of a group of people, and you say, hey, tell me about that guy in the red shirt.
Okay, got it.
So, a model with good visual grounding will understand exactly which person you're referring to. It's not just processing the image as a whole, it's connecting your words to specific visual elements within the image.
So it's really understanding the relationship between text and visuals on a deeper level.
Exactly, and that has huge implications for all sorts of things, from image editing to analyzing complex scenes.
So this is more than just being able to recognize what's in an image. It's about actually understanding it in relation to language.
Right. And according to Meta and MarkTech Post, Maverick is actually outperforming some really big names in tasks that require this multimodal reasoning. We're talking GPT-4o, Gemini 2.0, Flash, some really impressive models.
Wow, so Maverick's going head-to-head with the best of the best and coming out on top.
It seems so. And it's not just about image understanding, it's also competitive on more general reasoning and coding tasks.
Okay, so it's not a one-trick pony. It's got some serious all-around capabilities.
Exactly. And in Meta AI and MarkTech Post, they both keep highlighting the efficiency of this model. They even mention that it achieved an ELO rating of 1417 on Marina, which is a pretty respected benchmark.
Yeah, ELO ratings, that's how they rank chess players, right? So using that for AI models, it's an interesting way to compare their overall capabilities.
It is. And a really good article by Siddharth Jindal, he points out that Maverick is really designed for those more demanding, higher-end use cases.
Okay, so this is the workhorse of the Llama 4 family.
That's a good way to put it. And just like Scout, it's flexible in terms of how it can be deployed. Jindal says it can run on a single H100 host or scale up to distributed inference.
So it can adapt to different computing environments. That's a nice feature for developers.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. Scout and Maverick are both impressive, but there's another member of the Llama 4 family that we need to talk about. Llama 4 Behemoth.
Behemoth. Okay, that name already sounds intimidating.
It does, doesn't it? And the specs are mind-blowing. 288B active parameters, 16 experts, nearly 2 trillion total parameters.
Whoa. Okay, we're talking next level stuff here.
We are, but here's the thing. Behemoth is still in training. It's not available yet. But both MarkTech Post and Meta AI say that Scout and Maverick were actually distilled from Behemoth.
Distilled? What does that even mean in this context?
It's actually a really cool process. Think of it like a master chef teaching their apprentices their secret techniques. In AI, it means that a smaller model can learn from a larger, more capable model.
So Scout and Maverick are kind of like the students who've learned from this incredibly powerful but still mysterious master, Behemoth.
I like that analogy. And the early results for Behemoth are pretty incredible. MarkTech Post and Meta AI both say that it's already beating models like GPT 4.5, Claude Sonnet 3.7, Gemini 2.0 Pro on those STEM benchmarks.
Wow, so even though we can't use Behemoth ourselves yet, it's clear that it's pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And those capabilities, those advancements, they're trickling down to Scout and Maverick through that distillation process.
That's pretty amazing. So Behemoth is like the hidden powerhouse behind the scenes, shaping the future of Llama 4.
One of the things that Meta's really emphasizing with this release is what they call natively multimodal capabilities.
Right. They're making a big deal about how these models were designed from the ground up to work seamlessly with both text and vision.
And it's not just about slapping a vision module onto an existing language model. The improved vision encoder, based on their medically lab technology. It's specifically trained to work hand in hand with the language processing parts.
So it's a much deeper level of integration.
Exactly. And that means they can do some really cool things, like imagine showing the AI several images and asking it to, say, compare the architectural styles or identify patterns or anomalies.
So it's not just understanding what's in an image, it's about really analyzing it and making connections between the visual information and whatever text prompt you give it.
Right. And Meta AI says that Llama 4 Scout, it's actually the best in class for what they call image grounding, which is that ability to link your words to specific elements within an image.
Okay, so back to that scenario with the group of people. Scout would be exceptionally good in understanding exactly who you're talking about when you say, that guy in the red shirt.
Exactly. Now, let's get a little bit into the technical nitty-gritty here.
All right, hit me with it.
Well, we've already talked about the mixture of experts architecture, but Meta AI and Siddharth both really emphasize how important this is for the efficiency of these models.
Okay, so can you give me like a slightly deeper explanation of how that works, but without getting too lost in the technical jargon?
Sure. Imagine a traditional AI model. It's like one gigantic brain trying to process every single piece of information, even if it's not relevant.
Okay, I'm with you.
But with mixture of experts, it's more like having a team of specialists.
Right, we talked about that.
So for any given input, whether it's text or an image or whatever, the system intelligently routes that information to only the expert modules that are actually equipped to deal with it.
So it's not wasting resources on parts of the model that aren't needed for that specific task.
Precisely. It's a much smarter way to allocate computing power, which is why these models can be so efficient and deliver those fast responses.
That makes a lot of sense. So what else is going on under the hood?
Well, Meta AI also talks about this thing called interleaved attention layers without positional embeddings. And then there's something called inference time temperature scaling.
Okay, those are some really technical terms. Can you break those down for me?
Sure. So all this stuff, they call it the IROP architecture. And the main thing to understand is that this is all about helping the model deal with those incredibly long context windows.
Right, that 10 million token thing.
Yeah. Traditional language models, they rely heavily on knowing the exact order of words in a sentence. It's called positional embeddings.
Okay.
But with IROP, it's a bit different. It allows the model to understand the relationships between words and ideas, even across really long sequences, without needing to rely so heavily on those fixed position markers.
So it's like it can see the bigger picture without getting lost in the details of the word order.
Exactly. And Meta also points out that they've done some pretty extensive multilingual pre-training with Llama 4, covering something like 200 languages.
Wow, 200 languages. That's a lot.
It is, and that means these models can be much more widely applicable.
It's not just an English language AI anymore.
Right. Now, let's talk about something really interesting that we found in the Turtles AI article. Enhanced voice capabilities.
Oh yeah, that's an angle I hadn't really thought about.
And it sounds like this is more than just simple speech to text.
Meaning?
It seems like voice interaction is actually baked into the core of these models. It's not just about transcribing your voice and then feeding it to the language model. Llama 4 is designed to understand and respond to voice commands directly.
Okay, so it's a more fundamental integration of voice.
Exactly. And the goal is clearly to create more natural communication. Turtles AI even mentions the ability for users to interrupt the model while it's speaking.
That's a really important part of human conversation that most voice assistants struggle with.
Totally. And Chris Cox, Meta's chief product officer, he actually said that Llama 4 is a big step toward a model that can really understand and respond to voice in a way that feels much more natural and human-like.
I can see how that would be a game changer, especially for things like voice assistants.
Right. And Turtles AI also talks about how businesses could use these intelligent agents with voice capabilities for things like customer service.
Yeah, that would be huge. Imagine AI agents that can actually represent a company in a really natural and engaging way, answering customer questions, resolving issues, all through voice.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about, and the fact that Meta is investing so heavily in voice AI, as the Turtles AI report points out, it really suggests that this is a key part of their long-term strategy.
Okay, so zooming out a bit, Kavut is calling Llama 4 a significant leap forward, even a potential game changer in the AI landscape.
Yeah, those are some pretty strong words.
They are. But when you look at the scale of this release, the performance, the emphasis on multimodal capabilities, it's hard to argue with that assessment.
And Mark Zuckerberg himself has been really emphasizing Meta's commitment to AI, even if it means taking some risks in the short term for long-term gains.
Seems like their goal is to be a major player in this space, going head-to-head with the likes of Google and OpenAI.
Absolutely. And the Kavot article, while looking ahead from October 2024, it talks about some really interesting ideas like enhanced reasoning, adaptability, a dual former model. And even though those specific details might not map perfectly onto what we're seeing with Llama 4 right now, the overall direction seems to be in line with those predictions.
It does feel like we're seeing a rapid evolution in AI capabilities.
Yeah, and one thing that Meta is really championing is the idea of openness. They believe that open sourcing these models, making them available to researchers and developers, is the best way to drive innovation.
And that's exactly what they're doing. Llama 4 Scout and Maverick are available for download right now on llama.com and Hugging Face.
And they're also being integrated into a lot of Meta's own products like WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram Direct, and even their main website.
So they're really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to OpenAI.
And to top it all off, they're hosting this LlamaCon event later this month, so we can probably expect even more news and announcements around this whole ecosystem.
Sounds like we'll have to do a follow-up episode.
Absolutely, but before we wrap up, I think it's important to step back and appreciate just how significant this Llama 4 release really is.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. We've got Scout with that incredible 10 million token context window. We've got Maverick, the powerful and efficient workhorse, and we've got Behemoth looming in the background, hinting at what's to come.
And the emphasis on natively multimodal capabilities, that's a huge step forward.
It really is. Meta is basically saying this is the future of AI models that can reason, understand images, and interact with us through voice in a way that feels natural and intuitive.
It's an exciting time to be following this field.
It is, and it makes you think about all the possibilities, right? What new applications will we see with these massive context windows? How will open sourcing these models change the landscape of AI development? What's the impact going to be on different industries?
A lot to ponder.
Definitely. So if you're the type who likes to get your hands dirty with code, I highly recommend checking out the models on llama.com and Hugging Face. And for everyone else, well, keep an eye out. These advancements are going to start showing up in the apps and services you use every day, sooner than you might think.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Llama 4. We'll be back soon with another look at what's shaping the world around us.